Welcome back, everybody. So we did our first little fun video. It's supposed to be very satirical. um, I mean, a little bit of hidden nuggets of truth in there, but for the most part, uh, I can easily say I'm super excited about this update for Diablo 4 because it shows potential. It shows that the company is willing to admit when they've done not such a good job, and they're going to work towards creating a better product, and that's good for everybody. Um, Especially trying to get that ironed out before the expansion. I'll be honest with you. I'm at this point, I'm not willing to spend money on an expansion unless I see some massive changes with the game. Um, and this is the step in that direction to rebuild the trust that I think they kind of damaged with a lot of fans, myself included. Maybe you as well. So it's an interesting scenario because there aren't a lot of times where we've had moments like this where a company extremely overpromised and undersold the product had such negative backlash. I think for the most part, Diablo just feels very much like it's just getting hate farmed a lot for the content, even from the bigger creators like Woji and some of those guys. They kind of you can kind of see the arc where they just disappear from trying to like really battle for Blizzard, um, and sell the game or sell the potential, and they just kind of gave up and got exhausted or overwhelmed by the overwhelming negativity. And I think that's to be expected because we went so long, had so many promises for so many things getting changed. That's let me mute that real quick. I don't know what that opened up real late. Um, but here we are now. We got the PTR night one. I only had a couple hours to play it, so I didn't get to delve super deep into it. Um, I was reading forum posts all day, and there was so much just people don't want to live in a world where they forgive or they forget, right? They just Blizzard messed up. Diablo 4 sucked at launch. Everything they did prior to that was either a really small step or just like a really big step backwards for some people. Um, and so they're just living on that hate. And it's an unfortunate thing, but I mean that's kind of how the gaming industry is right now. Um, Part of that I think is due to there's just so much. I'm gonna turn this down a lot because it's blaring in my ear. Look at that, using like almost the same exact items. A lot of that probably has to do. There's just so much market space now, and there's so many games out. It's not like you don't have a place to go elsewhere. You can go to Path of Exile. You can go back to Diablo 2 remake. You can go back to the remaster. You can go back to Diablo 3, right? So it's not that the market's light. It's saturated to some degree. But for big time competitors, Blizzard really hasn't had to compete a lot, and I feel like when you don't have that edge of somebody else pushing you, you kind of fall a couple steps behind, and I believe that's where Diablo kind of fell. But so for the next little bit of this video, I'm kind of focused on some of the huge things that they've changed, that I've noticed already, that I'm excited for, that show a lot of potential. Somebody commented that the game looks like it runs like shit. It's the PTR. I didn't download the full assets. I downloaded the half assets because I didn't want the high res assets and all that stuff because I don't care how it looks. I just wanted to test the game. It does have some jankiness to it, but I don't necessarily know how many servers they've thrown at this PTR and expectations to what kind of community they were going to get, right? When the PTR launched, there was only someone should put a screenshot up. There was only it was like 2,200 active players on Diablo at the time, which is crazy. All right, but so we're gonna go through some quick things. I'm really excited about the stat changes. I know I was joking about the life per second. That's just the generic items they threw at me. It's not like I sat there and I farmed and I was min-maxing and I was getting to really pick all these different things. You know, like I have maximum life gems in here because I didn't have enough dust to make, you know, the ones I wanted to. I don't have sockets in this stuff because I didn't farm hell tides to get more, you know, socket. Like, it's not like I went super heavy into trying to do a lot of things because I didn't have a lot of time. You know, I'm working during the week as well. So one of the things I do want to highlight is they really changed the ability stat trees, and I'll show you the best thing about that. Now, granted, I did not play last season, so if some of this stuff was added in last season, I apologize if I think it's new, but it's new to me. So the biggest thing, right, is when you're enchanting an item. I don't know if this is new or not, but they did add view possible affix. I hope this is something they added, or I just didn't mix it. If it is, you know, forgive me. I didn't play Season 3. I had a lot of other stuff to do, and quite frankly, they burned their bridge with me from launch to then, so I didn't really play it. Some people really liked it, other people didn't. You know, I heard a lot of mixed bags, but this is one of the huge things that I was really upset that they didn't have is, you know, when you were going to change an ability out, you didn't know what you were going to get, right? And then somebody came out, I think it might have been Woji, came out with that. It was like a Google Doc tooltip on how the abilities were being like utilized and farmed, and there were certain top tier ones that were main primary stats, and then there were second tier ones, so you couldn't get too many of these, and a lot of the game felt like they purposely obscured it to try and hide the fact that there were just so many broken systems built in it. But this is awesome. So as you can see, it does appear that everything's the same. The only difference with this is intelligence can appear here because it is part of the stat pool, but I wouldn't be able to roll it here because you couldn't get double intelligence, right? So it does appear the stat pool is the same, and honestly, these are all big hits. So you have your main stat, right? So it would be strength for a barb, dexterity, you know. So you could really min-max how you're gonna do it. Maximum life, I think, will always be there because they don't have something like vitality, which was part of my joke video. They don't have a overwhelming, or they don't have a stat pool of a specific stat that allows it to kind of be multi-purposed, which is one of the things I really hope they do add at some point, because I think it would help kind of balance out how they min-max progression for damage scaling, on top of, it's always nice when your character can take more than 1 or 2 hits without getting just completely murked, right? I do love when there's abilities that can kill you in one shot, and you do have to dodge them, and it adds a little bit of a skill tree or a skill element to it. But at the same token, it gets exhausting having to play at that like high level. Like, sometimes I just want to turn my brain off after a really hard day of work and just run through the game. But as you can see, everything here is pretty much a solid big hit, right? So you got IS, which is super big for a lot of builds. Critical strike damage, which we're not sure. They did say in the patch notes that they did a really big update to how vulnerable damage and critical strike damage and overpower kind of all play together, so that they don't compound and people aren't hitting for 8 trillion damage. We will see how that kind of plays out, but at the moment, you know, you pretty much get to choose which one you want. It doesn't appear you're really gonna get to stack them. I guess I could roll both of these off, and I could have went for it. But you know what? Here, let's see. Okay, well, I can't. I have to find one with it. I'll try and find an item real quick tonight, and we'll see it. But I want to see if you can take them both, because I'm curious if, like, this is in one pool, these are in another, and then these are another. But just moving on. So you got damage over time. Again, I'm not sure how much this is going to play into it. This is kind of really only for Necros and maybe Sorks. Maybe there's a bleed build out there that kind of utilizes this. But again, like, I'm not super fluent with the top builds right now. My primary class has always been a Sork, or a Wizard or whatever you wanted to play. I do like playing Druid sometimes, but like I would play an Elemental Druid or I'd play a Zoo Druid, and those options just weren't available in this game at all. And then you have the Lucky Hit one, which is up to 5% chance to restore primary resource. It doesn't say how much, and I don't know if that means it's 20 to 28% of your primary resource based off the Lucky Hit. This is kind of worded in a way where it's potential that it could be you're getting 20% resource back on a Lucky Hit, or this is the Lucky Hit percentage it's already sitting at on top of whatever your natural abilities would be. So maybe a little bit more Definity there would be nice. And then resource cost reduction, right? And these are huge numbers. Obviously, this is a two-hand weapon, so you would want to cut everything in half because when you're using two one-handers, the stat pool is reduced by 50%, right? So this would be 20 to 25% damage. This would be, 11 to probably like 15-ish percent, give or take. Maybe it would be 16.5. So like I said, some pretty big changes to your stat pool, right? If I went to, if I go here, so you have intelligence, maximum life, life per second, thorns, healing received, armor, resistance to all elements, all the resistances, and impairment reduction effects, right? I'm curious. We're going to click on the Firebolt. So you can get 1 to 2 to basic skills, or you can get one of any of the trees, right? So, I mean, obviously, because that's there, those probably can't come up there. So it doesn't appear that there's any kind of pool tiering where you can't get an ability because you have something else next to it. But for something like this, you definitely, it appears you can only get one skill increase. So let's check on the gloves, because my old gloves used to be, so my old gloves used to be plus Fireball and plus whatever the other thing I was using was. I think it might have been Frozen Orb in one of my builds. I don't know. I was doing a lot of weird funky builds. But anyways, so I did 2 stat increases, and then I did Intelligence and Crit Strike, or I did Intelligence and IAS, depending on which build I was doing. So it could be because this only has 2 stats on it, not the third slot, that it's not available. But most likely, they're probably only going to allow you to have 1 skill increase, and then 1 additional one. I will say disappointment that you can't get 4 item slots on a legendary yet. And I don't know if they're trying to kind of slow roll that in so that either there's an item that drops that allows you to have that 4th slot for min-maxing purposes, or perhaps they're going to add primal drops. Primal drops in Diablo 3 were pretty big. It meant that the item came out perfect in every stat pool. You could re-roll a stat, and whatever stat you re-rolled would always be perfect as well. So primals were really cool because it just max armor, max stats, max everything. So maybe they're kind of going to add that, where if you got a primal drop or something to that extent, it would not only be perfect, but it could potentially have a 4th stat slot, which would make those items a huge chase. Getting a full set of primal gear would put your character at its like such a huge tier that it would be pretty incredible. Everything else appears item-wise to be pretty close to the same. It's really hard for me to say my character was really weak or strong. Some people said my guy looked weak. I don't have any of my skills. I don't have really good gear. None of the gear in the inventory when you start, because you had a huge, you had 2 rows of items. So what is that? 20 items? Like 2 of them were cold based, not a single one. There was lightning all over the place. There was fire everywhere. So it's not like I had itemization like leaning in my direction as well. So it is what it is. Sometimes you don't do. I'm trying to get over here, but again, the game's frozen because I opened my inventory. So to that aspect, I don't know if they've changed that. I don't know if you're no longer loading everybody. everybody's item slots. I do know that they're adding like a global trade so that you can trade with other people, which does change some things. Hold on one sec. But that trade is not going to be facilitated within the game. So, Jesus. I should not have opened my inventory, apparently. It's like full-blown brick mode. It's going to be done through a third-party website, which is kind of how Path of Exiles did it. I wasn't a huge Path of Exiles fan. I didn't put a lot of time into it. I liked it, but it felt very, 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 very grindy. And I played a really early version of it, so I'm sure it's a much different game and it's much better now than it was back in the day. So I can't really speak to whether that's a good thing, whether that's just plagued with real money transactions. It could be, it couldn't be, but it kind of, from how they were wording it in the Fireside chat and how people have responded, it feels like Blizzard's just going to kind of be hands-off, which leads to a lot of potential for theft, scamming, like a real seedy element to it, which I don't necessarily like, as if it was a built-in system in the game where you could buy it for gold or you could trade it, right? You could set an item up to be tradable. Okay, so I feel like the game just completely bricked on me. Let's take a look. Maybe? I don't know. PTR, public test building. That's crazy. Alright, well let's just close this and we'll reopen it while I'm talking. Itemization. Other thing is reforging, or what are we calling it? Whatever the Smith they're calling it, but it's essentially you get to either add a stat to it. So if it had 3, you could add a 4th. If it had 2, you can add a 3rd. Those you get through what appears to be in-game drops, and it gives you a random set of items. The big thing I've noticed with that is, let's say you can only reforge 5 times. And I'm sorry if I didn't, I'm not saying that correctly. Because honestly, this thing is like full-blown brick mode, so I'm gonna have to completely shut it down, which is crazy. But, you know, it is what it is. For some reason, it's taking up 97% of my memory. What the hell? Hopefully that doesn't translate to live. That would be gnarly. Every item I've had has 5. It appears it has 5 rerolls. I don't know if you can refresh that number, or if maybe you can upgrade it, or they come back. If it's 5 and then it's done, it does add an element to where if you don't roll into the stat you're wanting, it essentially means the item is dead for you, so you're going to have to farm another one that's the same, farm essentially the same item to try and re-roll into a perfect again. Which, when that system is in place, that never feels really good. But again, I don't necessarily want it to be so easy that I can get anything I want at everyone is the same and everyone's got max gear. I do like the chase. I just, I also like it if you're going to have the chase in, where I spent a lot of time trying to find these items. Finding an item that has a really small chance of never being good enough, or like when you get to the point where you're really, really trying to min-max and push your DPS and you're trying to really push that progress forward, it leans back to that thing where if every item that drops is worthless, right? Does that feel good for players? It's a yes and a no situation. I understand its necessity, and I've done it before. You gotta remember, I played Diablo for a month ago. I was playing Diablo 2. I played the original Diablo when Battle.net first came out. Tons and tons of Diablo 3. It's not that we don't want to do it, and I think that's kind of the misnomer is companies and like reviewers and other people will say things like, well, you'll sit there and you farmed, Duriel for, well, no one farmed Duriel. I don't know, maybe somebody did. I farmed the shit out of Indariel to get, what was I trying, as the Grim Visage unique. Shaco was also one that was rumored to drop really heavily off of her. But I mean, either here or there. Oh, you'd kill that a million times. Why won't you run Diablo, 4 million times? Okay. My counterpoint to that is, yeah, I ran those dungeons a million times. I did the cow level 8 billion times trying to get ruins, right? I did it in Diablo 2. I did it in Diablo 3. A lot of time has passed in between those iterations. In Diablo 4, I'm a different person. I'm an adult. I have kids. I work 45, 50 hours a week. I try to stream as much as possible. I'm not in the position I was when I was a kid to go, hey, guess what? I'm going to start at 8 a.m. and I'm going to go to bed at 8 a.m. the next day when I finally pass out. And I'm going to farm the hell out of this. Which, unfortunately, was an unhealthy habit I had. I played EverQuest. And anyone who knows anything about EverQuest, there were mobs that would spawn on 24-hour timers that could skip timers, and if you left the logged out and you came back and somebody else was there, fair play to them, they finally got it. Okay, hopefully this doesn't fully crash on me again. There we go. Okay, so everything kind of salvages down. Super cool, super cool upgrade is. When you're upgrading or when you're dismantling things, if you get a better aspect, I don't have to go pull the aspect off of the item. I can automatically upgrade in my codec the highest power level item that I've dismantled. So if you find a perfect stat of it, you can then put that perfect stat on every item subsequent to that. That is an amazing quality of life update. So thankful for that, because that's one of the things. Having to farm new items, then go find the appropriate stats on them, it's just everything compounded. So when you pull it off,
still got some good in it.
You get your items, and then you can see here your aspect is upgraded in my codec of power. Everything else is kind of the same. I mean, this game is really struggling tonight. That's crazy. Oh, tempering. I'm sorry. It's called tempering. Okay, so tempering. As you can see, every item, it's in the bottom right corner. Every item has 5 out of 5. I had to temper that twice in order to get to the correct thing I wanted. But each temper has a recipe book. Each of these recipe books are found in world drops. So as you can see, I don't have a lot of them. I haven't done that many runs. But essentially how it works, let's temper an item. Okay, so I'm going to come in here. I tempered this one already to have the Frost Nova size. So, the only things I have applicable to it. And again, I haven't gotten super far into this, so I don't know if it has a deeper level yet. It would be cool if it does, if it has multiple tiers where you can do more and more and upgrade, which is how they might kind of described it. I just haven't gotten to that yet. But anyways, so, I have Sorcerer's Control, which is pretty much all your mob control, right? Immobilize, Stun, Freeze, and then Frost Nova size. You have Worldly Fortune, which are all lucky hit chances. The thing I was talking about with this, though, is if I pick this, I have an equal chance to roll in any of those stats. So, for example, when I was rolling this item right here. Let me close that. Offensive, right? These are the ones I was going for. I rolled damage to close enemies 3 times. Damage to close enemies is a dead stat for this build because I'm using Blizzard and I'm all about kiting, right? So I wanted damage to distant enemies. On top of it, it's got a pretty wide range, right? So 72 to 95%, right? So if I don't hit 95, I waste all 5 rolls and I get 72.5. The double-edged sword to that is, yes, I have another item I need to upgrade or I need to go chase, but at the same token, now I have to find the perfect item that has the perfect stat pool, only to have another chance at rolling it. It's a weird balance of trying to find what becomes excessively abusive is not the word, but excessively time consuming. Let's go with that. Characteristics in a game and meaningful progress or meaningful content like farming, right? So I think there's a real juxtaposition between engagement and then continuity or like congressive time spent in the game, where a developer thinks a person that's online for 8 hours, that they want everyone to be online for 8 hours, that's a success. But if they have 10 million people that are online for 1 hour, why are they disengaging? Well, they have lives, right? I think there's more being pushed to programming or creating mechanics or creating engines inside of things that drive players to be connected for as long as possible. WoW is a big one for having the struggle of that, right? Doing a Molten Core raid, which was like a 5 to 8 hour thing. Like, that's hard to get that many people lined up. So it's the same token for this. If my time commitment becomes a point where my investment into it exceeds the time available, so that I'm always going to be struggling, or I'm never going to get to a place where I feel like I've accomplished what I was trying to set out to accomplish, it pushes people away. I'm definitely in that category, right? I do love these games, and I could sink tons of time into them, and I can sit there and I can farm, and I can do it. But if I never see any light at the end of the tunnel, it definitely puts me in a position where I then have to go, well, I can go play an RPG that has a beginning and an end and have that conclusion and have that wrap up and find a different level of disengagement from, reality, or from stress, or from dealing with all the, my real life stuff to play a video game, than to go from my job that I just worked 12 hours, jump on Diablo 4 to do a second job, essentially, right? And so I think that's something that they're going to have to work on. And I think it's something that I think we've seen industry-wide has been a standard that has changed, and it's pushed people in a lot of different directions. Some people really like it. Some people hate. Some companies have like doubled down and tripled down. You have Skull and Bones that came out, I guess, has like an atrocious reconnect or like a reactivity rate where it's like getting compared to gacha games where it's like a daily reward system to just keep coming in, and they just like, here's your spoonful of gruel, come back tomorrow for another. Like, that's crazy to me. Isn't a game supposed to be fun ultimately? But yeah, so this is the tempering system. It could be a little bit more in-depth. Maybe they didn't release the full version of it, because when they were describing it, it felt like it was going to be different, or it felt like it was going to be a little bit more in-depth, because I know the tempering system in a lot of other games is insanely in-depth now, where you can take an item and you can essentially level an item up 1,000 times to really min-max it and to get all that extra stuff. So if you want to talk about time investment, that's how you do it, right? You have somebody find that perfect item they love, and then they just have to keep building into that item and build into that progression. So then I have 20 items I have to do max progression in. Like, that's engagement. That's intense time investment. The gems have changed, so let's go to that. So again, there's no gem slot. I'm not going to knock them. It is what it is, right? This game was being developed. A ton of those people quit, left the company, were fired, however it went down. Rumor has it that people that originally coded this game aren't at the company, so they do not know how to rewrite the code to change some things. So essentially what they're doing now is layering code on top of code, which is why it's been a little bit of a shit show when they're trying to do updates, and because how it's breaking systems. I don't know if that's true, if that's just a wild rumor that's going around. But based off of some of the things that have happened, it leads me towards the understanding that maybe some aspect of it is true. For example, why don't we have a gem slot dedicated to gems? Why do we only have one stash? Why are we loading in every single person's inventory when no MMO on the planet has ever done that until you interact with them? You know, there's just a ton of things that were just weirdly in this game that shouldn't have been. But so the gems tab does not exist. However, gems do not drop in the ground anymore. Gems now drop as, I think it should be in here. Yeah, here they go. They drop as fragments. So the gems drop as fragments, so they're essentially broken down and added as a resource. And then you just come over to your jeweler here. Here's your jeweler. And you craft the gem you want, right? It costs a certain amount, so this one costs 10,000 amethyst fragments. It's like gold on the ground, it just auto picks up, right? So it's like, it's not where it should be, it's like a side grade. But resource-wise, maybe them adding a whole nother tab here with gems in it would have just, you know, bricked the system and just made it even more impossible to load. I don't know. I'm not a game developer. It's to that extent, right? So, like I said, this was originally in a different item, but I switched it out. I don't have sockets, so I can't put this back in, so it has to go sit in my stash, which is one of the people's complaint. A lot of people's complaint is staff and item management in this game. You know, the comment that they said they've really fixed the item pool, so that you're not picking up meaningless items. I don't know how true that is, and I don't know if how true that'll ever be. Because ultimately in a game like this, you will get a point where you're always going to be picking up useless items. Alright, so here's the Codex of Power I have. So as you can see, like, this says 10 out of 16. So that means I need to pull out the legendary aspect out of more items. So you see them at different levels. You can see ones that I've never even taken out. So it's kind of cool. I'm curious if they're going to backlog this, where when I log in on my main character who has the best version of all of these, or they kind of wipe the plate of it. Can I just farm all perfects right now? The patch comes out and then I dismantle all the perfects so I'll have access to them. Again, you know, who knows? We haven't really got it. Sigils are still the same from what I can see, at least. I'm gonna craft one. So it's still one positive thing, one negative. They took out the double, which is really good. My only issue with this is still kind of in the same vein. Is anything that takes away from me enjoying the game, or me having to just constantly like hyper focus or fret over it, like just shifting shade, and I don't know if the rock's still in it. I think I remember someone telling me it was removed. I haven't gotten it yet. But things like that, right? I don't enjoy those. I don't think they're good gameplay elements or mechanics. Maybe once in a while, or like having there be special ones. Like, let's say you do 5 sigils in a row. The 6th one is a special one, which has a higher chance of loot. It has like a loot goblin at the end. Something cool like that, right? But that one has the multiple like debuffs or the multiple negative consequences, making the dungeon harder. That would be cool. That would be challenging. Like, I can be like, okay, I have to engage in that one differently, right? I have to be more like, doing it every single time to me is just exhausting. And then it's where characterization takes its biggest toll. It's where builds get broken. It's where builds stop being played. Builds stop being utilized. Stop getting love. Then they stop getting itemization within future patches and stuff. I think it has a real negative curve to it when we do that, because then, okay, well, the only one that could push 200 or, you know, tier 100 sigils, right, is a druid that has maximum, you know, or has this build and can do it. Alchemist is still the same. You can craft elixirs. The thing that is new, I don't know how this is, if this is just for the PTR, you could try and get people to get it. But you can make Tyrael's Might, which is a new one they added. I don't know how to get Resplendent Sparks. My assumption is when you dismantle another chase item, so another high level ancestral unique staff. So like here's Andariel's Visage, Harlequin's Quest, right, which would be amazing to have. The Melted Heart. So when you break these down, maybe they break into a Resplendent Spark. So maybe you don't find the one you want, but if you found enough of the other ones, you can then craft the one you really want. I like that. I think that's a cool effect, but I also feel like that seems really high. If it only breaks down 1-to-1, me needing 4 to get the one I want, it's hard enough finding 1, let alone finding 4. Like, come on, that's abusive. But you can craft them. You can see they're in the game. They exist, so that's cool. I don't know what the summoning items do. Something with the world tree. I haven't really checked that. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to go into this sigil real quick. Where I'm going to get bodied. Ugh. Some people commented that my build sucks. It was shit. I agree. This was the original build I did based off of how Sorks were at the launch of Diablo. And they were bad. The builds were bad. But this is also the build that beat Uber Lilith first. So there's something to it. I don't remember it 100%. I just built it really quick. So yeah, it probably sucks pretty bad. But that's okay. I do love how you can just teleport straight to it. I kind of wish it just takes you straight to the dungeon. Because, again, anytime you load these games, it feels like there's always that flip of a coin. It's like rolling a d20. Every time you roll a 1, you get disconnected, the game crashes. It just leads to a higher negative experience, in the long run. Alright, so let's just give this a see how quickly I die. Watch me be able to actually kill this. That would be kind of funny. Yeah, so this build was made so that I had the maximum number of defensive attributes to not die. So I think this one might go a little bit better because I don't have any of the really abusive mechanics built into it. So I'm not having the drifting shade. I don't have the blood blisters. Right, and then so like blood blisters I feel like is the correct balance for me for what that should be. What? My Vault of Forsaken has been... Oh, am I not in the... Okay, so again, I don't know what the hell just happened. I teleported to the dungeon, went into the dungeon, now I have to go into another dungeon. Okay, we all saw that, right? I thought I literally had already gone in. Never mind. Back to my point, I'm now massively loading. What? Oh, does it actually takes you into the dungeon now? Okay, I'm super confused, because last night when I did 3 dungeons, it did not do that. It took me out front. Okay, well, if that's true, awesome. Again, another huge upgrade. I love that. I think that's amazing. There we go. This is right. Okay, so like this one right here, it's not like it's a hard one to dodge. There will be that time where you're kind of like stuck in a... We'll check the items out. So, again, I don't know why white items are dropping for me. I thought the whole point of this was to prevent that. So that you're not picking those up or you're not seeing those. Like, again, I don't know. Maybe that's just like a weird bug that's currently happening. and they're populating when they're not supposed to be. They'll fix it, or if that's how it's going to be. Last night, Chat and I thought it was just a weird bug where, because I didn't have the item unlocked, that it was just dropping for me to dismantle it so that I could have the item set for like the visual upgrade, you know, transmogging. But it wasn't happening, so I don't know. So, like, you know, there's less items dropping. So those are the fragments right there, as you can see, the amethyst fragments. And then all of that stuff, it's not, I don't have to pick it up, right? It just auto picks up. I don't have to click on it, so that's fine. Which to me, my only question to that would be, if you're gonna make it so that I auto pick it up, why not just have it drop to the inventory? I know it would probably be, it'd probably make other people upset that, like, oh, I don't get to pick anything up off the ground. But that would be, I mean, that's the point of having items drop, right? I don't know. I think that's just sort of like it'll always be a chase, or it's always going to be like a red herring. For some people, they're going to want the stuff on the ground. Other people don't want to. It doesn't bother me that I have to go pick it up. I mentioned it because a huge portion of what they talked about was making it so that people don't have to pick up dumb shit off the ground. Because that never feels good. And then it just gets to the point where people stop picking it up. Right, which is why I mentioned, like, well, why couldn't they have done a system where all the items drop, but they don't populate on the grounds, unless maybe they're a legendary, or you can set the threshold for what you want to see. Otherwise, they just all go to a screen at the end, you know, kind of like a loot screen, and you just pick which one you take. I don't know. I don't know what the correct answer is, or if there is one. But, like I said, I'm actually really stoked that I zoned straight into it. So maybe it's specific ones you can and other ones you can't.
I lack the needed mana.
So this is actually going a lot better than it was last night. I was getting bodied in these for some reason. I mean, I got a couple items. Well, I guess I did take the time to itemize a little bit better. But I'm sure my board is fully jacked up. So this weekend, when I have more time, I'm going to do another character. And we're going to build it, like, we're going to go online and see what the best, like, S-tier build is right now. And we're going to build that one to see if there's a huge difference. But, I mean, I'm not doing bad. Which surprises me. I mean, it shouldn't surprise me. I personally thought this build was really good back in the day when other people didn't. I kind of customized it to be a little bit more DPS focused and glass build, because you gotta remember, Season 1 Sork, it didn't matter what my gear set was, it didn't matter what I stacked, I was effed from go. I got hit once, I died. I got breathed on, I got looked the wrong way, I was dead. So there was no point to be taking a bunch of, defensive, you know, stat lines, or a bunch of defensive skills that don't work, right? Resistances were completely pointless. I could never get enough armor for it to have a beneficial effect the way it could for other classes. So it was just like, you know, why bother, right? Obviously, I could probably balance it a little bit better and survive 2 or 3 hits. The change to Frozen Orb is cool. Wow, I just almost got wrecked on that one. Woo! Oh, okay. Ran out of defenses. I probably should have permacrossed. But I felt like, even right there, that felt like a much better, I thought I was closer than that. That felt much better to me because I was getting hit a bunch of times. I was popping my cooldowns. I played it wrong. I should have backed off and then permafrost to try and kill out the extra things.
I'm not ready yet.
I could probably get away with getting rid of the ice. So my build does 3 frozen orbs to get vulnerability. Because again, this was back when I had to really, I did like try really hard to eke out any extra damage. And vulnerability was pretty much designed to be the best stat in existence. If you weren't doing vulnerability and crit, you were dumb. Like,
I need time to do this.
so we can get baleful fragments off the ground. I feel like that's pretty good change. I don't know if that's something that's really gone in a different direction. I haven't found an item that can give me plus blizzard anymore. So maybe there's something that can give me plus mastery. We're gonna have to find out. And then there was the season where everything I did was with, what was it, Barber? That was the last season I played, was the Barber hijinks of, what was that, season 2? Was that season 2 or season 3? And literally it was just, every world boss would be immune until it died. And then in every dungeon, everything's immune until it's died. And then Barber didn't interact in groups well because it stopped other people's abilities from working. So everyone just kind of went to solo play. Yeah. The vampire season seemed pretty cool, but again, at the time, I just didn't have. Oh, no. So I'm actually surprised at this right now. I shouldn't have run in. I got excited. I didn't think that guy was gonna whack me right there. But like that, like I'm okay with dying there. I was being dumb, right? I don't have any cooldown reduction, which that's a bummer. So my build is based on my orb gets out there. To cause vulnerability like that, which then causes my blizzards to go ham. Anytime I do freeze something, I have. He's coming right at me. My orb or my frostbolt is just constantly. Whoa, that poison was hardcore. Round 2. Gold. See, like, that's one of the reasons I do enjoy that gold. So can I? So I can salvage them for the look, right? So maybe that's why it drops. Like I said, some of the stuff makes sense, some of it doesn't. When you're in a new season and you're unlocking everything anyways, you're gonna be picking all that stuff once at least. The salvaging for new looks, though, is kind of like a weird thing because ultimately, all they're trying to do is to get you to buy the DLC, to get all the new skin packs and everything like that, and they're all massively expensive. To find one more. So it appears they changed Frozen Orb, which I've really enjoyed, to it explodes where you click. So if I clicked over here, it'll explode where my mouse cursor is. If I click right here, it'll explode right here. My question was how it was going to interact with triggering off of my Blizzard cast or one of my other casts, and how it interacts is where my cursor is for whatever ability it triggers off of. It'll spawn there, so that's good. That's good to know. This guy's all up in my business.
I'm not ready yet.
I don't know why I teleported in there. I thought I was better. Alright, so let's see how a boss goes. I'm actually surprised I might have actually beat this. Alright, so now we're back to the drowned sea hag. Ironic that in my joke video, that's what I was fighting. It does feel like they've toned down some of the stat lines a little bit. So with a build similar to this, although I did have like my Blizzard, I don't know, I think I had it almost to 9 or 10 when it was all said and done. I was getting like 1.2 million crits with it, and I was getting really big overpowers. So it does feel like I'm not getting that anymore. And again, but that could just be because I'm not properly itemized to carry that kind of damage right now. It could change though. Did I beat her? Wow. Okay, so you saw that. I have no idea why that fight just reset. I'm literally in the room. So as you can see, there's still a little bit of jankiness to it. Apparently they didn't want me to kill her the first time. I had to prove I could kill her a second time. Literally as I came out. What perfect timing. Alright, I call freaking full shenanigans on that. I beat the boss and it makes me fight it a second time and then I get drilled on that. And then I lose the dungeon. Ugh. Okay. Well, I'm gonna try not to let that sit as badly with me as it really does right now, because that does actually piss me off. Hey Blizzard, let me finish the dungeon. I was trying to make a video where I showed you how much I love you. It was a joke! I'm so sorry. But, you know, it is what it is. Again, I'm going to lean towards just a public test build, and just crap is funky. Alright, but, so let's take a look at the items I dropped, because that's ultimately why I'm here, assuming the game doesn't crash. Okay, so, everything came out 9/25, that's all I care about. Well, the blue didn't, that's fine. The yellows did. Okay, so everything came out as 9/25, so that's good. Alright, so let's take a look. 7%. 81 intelligence, 701 while you're in your own blizzard for 3 seconds after leading it, you take less damage. I mean, that's not bad, but it's also not helping me. I'm just going to equip it because, well, and I also lose 20% maximum life because it doesn't nothing has sockets in it, which I'm finding super annoying, because it's like it's trying to force, like, it's the PTR, just let me socket items. But anyways, but I mean ostensibly, you know, upgrade. I would roll the lightning resistance off. So let's take a look and see what we can do with that. All right, so we got a focus here. Lucky hit, vampiric curse. Another focus here. Oh, there it is. Perfect. Okay, so that, where it says 126 intelligence, how it's got that, the sun is lit up right there, that means it's a perfect roll. So that's the maximum, the stat could have rolled on the item. That's what I wanted to show you guys. So, if you had that 3 times, does the item then be primal? Like, will it actually give it that designation? Or is that just something where, you know, it is what it is? But that's cool. And that's actually not that bad, right? 126 intelligence, 14 maximum resource, and resource cost reduction. That I could see that in a build being beneficial. Thorns damage dealt has a 31% chance to deal damage to all enemies and minions. I'm sure there's a character out there that has a Thorns build. I'll tell you what character that's not doing that, though, is a Sork. So I would 100% roll that bitch off. I might keep that, though. That's not a bad item. And again, 5 mana per second. That's not bad, but it's not hot. 726 maximum life. It's just like, to my other point, there was some truth to that. I do wish there was a stat called vitality, stamina, I don't know, endurance maybe. Well, endurance was for running in other games, but something to that effect. Resilience, who knows. But it should just basically be a blanket where it gives you health, it gives you a maximum health, it gives you a little bit of resiliency, or like a little bit of beefiness, maybe some life per second. Breaking each of those down into its own stat just feels, I don't know if lazy is the correct term, because there's so many. I don't know. I don't know the best way to describe it, other than I feel like it should just be, all of those should equal into one thing, or there should be 2 tiers of stats where you have primaries and then you have secondaries. And then in the secondary one, you could have your life per second, you could have thorns, you know, things of that nature. I liked how Diablo 3 did it with that, so maybe they will adopt that. But again, like that item is forever worthless. 726 maximum life does nothing for most characters. Unless for some reason they were trying to stack maximum life, like there's an ability that has a maximum life thing. To me, it just seems so throw-in, and so like, oh, well, we don't know what other stat we want to add. Let's just add maximum life. And maybe they have these in there because, like I said before about the programming or the people leaving, maybe they don't know how to add another stat line. Like, maybe that would completely break the game, so we're never going to have that. That's crazy. but I believe this is the first Diablo that only has 4 primary stats. Um, I think everyone has a stat like that in every game. It's Constitution in Diablo 1, in Diablo 2. I forgot what it's called. I'm tired. But anyways, this one doesn't have that. So, I don't know. I'm sure there's a rhyme and a reason for it, but I don't understand it. Alright, so next we have a really good item, actually. So, 74 intelligence, 40 critical strike damage. When you freeze an enemy, there's a 39% chance they become vulnerable. So, that's actually super strong. My only issue is it doesn't have what I want on it, so maybe we'll take a look and see if we can make that better and play with it. The rares, well, at least I got a socket in that one. But appears maybe the socket takes up the 3rd slot. I'm not seeing yellows with a 3rd item slot on it. So again, it just means that if this can never have a 3rd item slot on it, they've effectively made it pointless for yellows to drop because it's never going to be an item I'm going to try and build up into that, into taking an ancestral slot, right? It's always, because it'll always be worse. Maybe I just haven't been lucky and found them. Again, like I said, I don't know everything. I haven't played this for a large period of time. I'm just throwing some things out there to do a little bit more of an extensive report. But let's go take a look at this real quick. Okay, so for starters, let's go to the occultist. So essentially, we would want to roll a stat off. What I do want to see with this, if I rolled it off, would the next item on come up as gold or come up as perfect? I don't want to take it off to check, but we'll see. And maybe it'll be something I try. So again, all 3 of the stat pools appears it doesn't have any difference to them. They're all the same. You know, like 3 to 4 mana on kill, that's not a primary stat. There's no, I won't say never, because I'm sure there's somebody out there that would value that, but here's my honest opinion. If you're playing this game, and you're chasing progress, oh, thank you. If you're chasing progress, if you're trying to min-max, okay? I have intelligence. Probably never going to take that off, right? Maximum resource, that could be a hit or a miss for certain people, depending on the build. Honestly, my ultimate build for this would probably be like intelligence, damage, and then either crit strike chance or attack speed, depending on the build, maybe cooldown reduction, right? So that's what I'm going for. On what planet is someone going to pick to take life per hit or mana on kill? Ever. Find me that build that's an S tier build that is going for those stat items. That's where I think they need to take those away, and there needs to be, maybe the 4th slot is one of these crappy ones. You have to roll into these like lesser wanted ones. So the 4th tier slot could be, you could have maximum life, or you can go life on hit, or you can go mana on kill, or you can do lucky hit for primary resource return. All right, everything else builds into like progression, pushing builds, and pushing balance. Does that make it easier to get good items? Probably, but they're making this game more casual anyways. So it just feels like maybe that's where they should have gone with it. Instead of leaving something like life per hit, mana. Like, all of these feel like they should be a 2nd tier item to get. That's just my humble opinion. I don't know if anyone else shares that. My last video, people were laughing. Some people thought I was being 100% serious, and they like called me like a whiny baby. Like, I was like, dude, I literally said at the end of the video, like, it's satirical. Like, there is nuggets of truth in there, but I was only making it as a joke. But I'm retouching that because we're going over other things. But, you know, so here's the pool on a primary, or I guess this would be your focus. So let's go to the legs, because originally this is where you could get plus to Blizzard. So I have lightning resistance, so let's take a look at with lightning resistance. Okay, again, so you can only have one resistance, so I couldn't have an item that had lightning or fire. Okay, so these two couldn't roll into different things. But from as it appears, everything is exactly the same. Yeah, I'm not seeing a difference in between. So on this item, again, instead of it being vitality or stamina, it's maximum life. 81 regular stat, perfect, right? Near perfect. This is always getting re-rolled off. Unless I, for some reason, got into a position where I had to have that much lightning resist. I'm going to lean towards, in my progression, having +3 to these stats is going to be more beneficial to me than having 44 lightning resistance. It's a hard sell. Again, maybe armor's the way if you're a character that's getting in there and you're getting in the mix of it. But again, I don't think armor ever doesn't have the diminishing returns in the fact that if armor is weighted against enemies of equal level, you're never fighting enemies of equal level. Yeah, you can go out on the world and you're a freaking god, right? And they can't do anything to you. But that's not where progression is. That's not where you're finding good items. That's not where you're spending a lot of time. So it needs to be reworked where either armor doesn't diminish when you go to monsters that are higher level than you, to the degree it does, or, something else needs to happen there. But yeah, so I would roll this off. I can't roll into slots, so I'm not going to get any sockets here. So honestly, like, what would I really go for here? I think the win would maybe be basic skills. Or getting 3 to Frostbolt for this build. Alright, but let's re-roll it. Yes. Okay. So these are my new options. Oof. Both of those are terrible. Both of those are freaking terrible. Yikes. Oh, man. That hurt me. That hurt my soul. So I'm gonna spend 1 billion hours here trying to get into the item I want, but I mean, I was just doing it for posterity's sake. Alright, so over here, I would be re-rolling the armor most likely. Alright, so lucky hit to make enemies vulnerable. That's kind of cool. If you were in a build where you were having an issue doing that, that might actually be beneficial. So then you have resistances, IS, and then you have your core skills. So for this one, I would be going for 3 for Frozen Orb, which isn't true. I'd be going for 2 to core skills so that I could get my Shard and my Orb up. Because I need Ice Shards up and I need Frozen Orb, and since I can't get +3 to both, I would have to go into the single, so I would be re-rolling this forever till I got +2 core skills. Like, that would be my optimal re-roll if I didn't find it on an item. Right? So I mean, that's super cool. That they kind of really streamlined that. What can Thorns turn into? Thorns would turn into cooldown reduction. That would be the only thing I want on this, is cooldown reduction. So my best in slot for this is maximum life and intelligence cooldown reduction. For chest, it's +2 to defensive skills, intelligence, and maximum life. And that's where I feel like they've streamlined it, but they've also reduced the pool, but in doing so have made more things even less beneficial. Like, I don't have the ability to want to take other things because I have to take BIS in every slot. I have to have the best stat pool in order for it to exist. What can this have on it? So this would be percentage to intelligence. Ooh. So there's some good ones here. Yo, glass cannon. So percentage to intelligence +2 to glass cannon, so I get killed even faster. And then, I don't know, crit strike chance maybe. Resource cost reduction, cooldown. Maybe it would probably be cooldown reduction for me. But yeah, rings can have... I don't know, they're essentially the same stat pool as the... And this is what I think they're probably going to be tinkering with the most, is this pool right here for the items, because I think once they nail this, it kind of makes everything else counterbalance. But rings, it's always going to be damage, and then attack speed maybe, crit strike chance. So damage, attack speed, and crit strike chance, like that's... It's going to be hard for a lot of those classes not to want those to be the 3 they need. Because let's be honest, let's say they took life per hit on every piece of item they have, okay? That's 20, let's be generous and say it's 25. So 25, 25, what is it on this one? 50 maybe? No, 25. So there's 75. If I could get it on all of these items, right? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 10 in total if I got it on both of these. So 10 times 25. That's 250 life returned on hit. 250 life returned on it. Dude. That's nothing. I'm getting hit for 1 billion times more damage than that, right? So it's... To me, that makes it a dead slot. It makes it a dead item where I gotta repair because I actually died. Alright, so let's break all these down. Oh, look at that, I got all that fun stuff. Okay. Because I don't really care about doing any of that extra BS right now, but we upgraded some aspects, we did some cool things. So like I said, overall huge win that any of this is even taking place. I'm really excited for them that they took the time to really address some of the major issues. I applaud them heavily. I think they're step 1. They really need the game to be at like step 50. That's the shitty thing. This is where the game should have launched. This is how the game should have come out, right? And we beta tested all of this stuff and they just adjusted it. Instead, they spent from launch till now trying to fix a bunch of broken systems that they ultimately they've abandoned all of them. This is just basically a full reset into something new. That's cool, takes a lot of courage, but how much courage does it take when congruent count for active game is under 1,000 people on most days? I calls it as I sees it. I love Diablo, I always loved Diablo, it's one of my favorite games of all time. Diablo 4 is definitely not one of my favorite games of all time. But I am super excited and hopeful that it might become a game I really do love again. I really hope Blizzard puts a lot of care into this and has a lot of understanding and listens to the feedback of the player base, because I'm sure there's people out there that are louder and more opinionated than I am about all of this. Like I said, I'm going to have a little bit more understanding when I go into it fully over the weekend. I just can't do that while I'm working, right? This is just a small video kind of going over some of the bigger changes and the things that I've seen that I'm really enjoying and that I really think are big wins for us. Dodge chats. Increases overpower damage. Increases resistance to all elements. And again, you can say what you want. I don't feel like this stat line exists. I'd have to go get hit by a cold spell to really figure it out, but it doesn't necessarily feel that way right now. What does this do with jewelry? Ugh, never mind. I was gonna put it in here and see, because I didn't have enough stuff to make it. But we're gonna do a lot more runs in the pit. slash greater rifts, which are fun. More so because I don't have to deal with any of that other crap, right? Because there's no weird buggy things in that. So these are quicker, these are faster. You teleport right into it, takes you back to town immediately. I think that's a huge win. I just think the sigil should do that as well. You sigil in, you sigil out. You have to do the sigils apparently to upgrade your gems. So it's kind of like you'll progress. You'll do the sigils to get your board maxed, to get all your upgrades maxed. I think my cat is trying to climb up me. Yes, she is. Hi, Naichi. And then you'll just power through rifts, or you'll find something else. But we'll see. Like I said, on the weekend, I'm gonna build more characters based off of what the top leaderboards are saying for best classes, or S tier classes, so I can see those builds out to kind of test those. Because obviously this is a janky ass build built during a janky ass time. I just wanted to see it because it has a special place in my heart, right? I built it myself. You can probably hear my cat attacking me. But really hope you enjoy it. Hope this lets people know a better sentiment of how I truly feel. I'm not all doom and gloom. And the first video was a lot of fun and a lot of jesting based off of crazy ass rants I've seen on Twitter, on forums. Man, some of you people go off and you're on a different level. I'm passionate about this game, but at the same time, I understand how the process works, so I'm not going to be going at people. But please drop a like, subscribe. Most importantly, do something kind for somebody else in the world. Jesus.